Okay, well, yeah. Well, I suppose I could start. Anyway, hello everybody.
Hello.
Hang on, let me just look on the second page. Annie, hi.
Gavin.
Amy, hi. Snehi. Hello, Joy. Oh God, there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
John Lando, Tupton Pemo. Tupton Pemo. Oh, where are you? I can't see you. Oh my goodness me, look at all these people. Hi, Diane. Thank you for all your emails.
Hi, Gavin.
I'm feeling, yeah, I had a bit of a bad time past few days. I've had some episodes and lots of brain fog, which is actually quite, it can be quite frightening. It's where you lose touch with reality. It's not, you can't be sure what's happening. And it happened at night, which is the worst time, in the middle of the night. And it was, I was a little bit apprehensive. I couldn't quite work out what was real. It's not Majamaka, don't worry. It's and so I had that, and I had some kind of, I had fevers and so forth. I mean, it might be, as Diane said, it might be a reaction to the vaccine, but I don't know, because the vaccine I had small side effects a couple of days, but this is now 2 weeks after. Whether you can get side effects 2 weeks after a vaccine, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, it's all sort of depressing, really. You go along and everything's fine. You think, oh, great, that's good. I'm getting over this, and suddenly, it's sort of, it kind of comes back with a vengeance, and kicks you in the teeth, and so yeah, it's a bit like that at the moment. But right now,
sometimes the Chinese herbs can cause sort of a clearing too. So you might be having some sort of a clearing from the remedies that you're using. That also is a factor.
Well, it could be. I mean, I've been on the Chinese herbs now for 5 weeks. So
yeah, hard to
I don't know. Anyway, we're not here to discuss my ailments. Okay. So
yeah, if you're not feeling well, let us know, and we can, stop at any time.
Shall I begin?
Sure, please. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. First of all, I want to say everything I say here and everything I said last week is essentially, a paraphrase of the Dalai Lama. The book that I'm translating right now, I've been working on for the past 2 years, is actually a compendium or compilation of his teachings that he's given in Tibetan. And of course, over the many, many years that in India, I've had so much to do with him. And so these are not my words. This is what I have gotten from him. And the reason I do this is because he to me, he makes so much sense. I would recommend it if you have a desire to learn Tibetan, I would do it, because there's a vast difference between listening to His Holiness in Tibetan and simultaneous translations. I mean, as good as the translators tend to say about excellent translators, but in Tibetan, you see, the thought process and much clearer. And so, to me, he always makes so much sense, and he's always based in some kind of reality, some kind of actuality, and not someone who is just mouthing what the Buddha said. And so I don't listen to I don't sort of use the Dalai Lama as a role model because he is a manifestation of Chenrezig, you know, the God of compassion. I don't see that. I don't see it that way. He is a Buddha. Therefore, whatever he says is I will take on board. Not like that. It's completely the opposite way round. You know? I see what he says and I listen, and it makes so much sense. And that way I go backwards and can be able to see what more, just maybe, you know, glimpses of, you know, maybe, you know, he is some kind of enlightened being. But on the whole, I tend to see him as someone, as a human being who has tried very hard and with great determination and with great morals. I mean, we have to remember the Dalai Lama is a man of great ethics. He's a real monk, or someone who keeps his vows as much as he possibly can. He's, you know, but on top of that, he has clearly, you know, meditated on bodhicitta, and you can see in the way he teaches and the way he is and his actions, how he really has exchanged himself with others. And then on his wisdom, through his listening to his words, it's possible to understand how how from his words alone that he thinks about things. You could actually hear him when he talks about things. You can see he's thought about it. In his morning meditation, he's thought about something. You know, that once he was at the in Dharamsala, he was at the children's village, TCV, the children's village celebrations. And he was there with these two tutors, Ling Rinpoche and Trijang Rinpoche. And it was a celebratory occasion. Trijang Rinpoche said in his autobiography, while we were there, His Holiness turned to me and started talking about a particular point in the 12 links, you know, the 12 links on the wheel of life. About now, I can't remember which one it was, about how number 5 or number 6 had right in the middle. And, you know, it shows that he thinks about things. And when he thinks about things, whatever his conclusion is, he shares it. And that is why I like him. That is why I follow him. Not because of his name, not because he is Dalai Lama 14th. That's not really important. What is important is who he is, you know. There's a saying in Tibetan, Ming Ringbo, Yunten Tung Tung. Ming Ringbo, Yunten Tung Tung means long name, short on qualities. And it's a kind of a put down of certain certain lamas who have lots long name, you know, long sort of name after their long titles, but their actual qualities are short. But in this case, it's completely the opposite, you know. So anyway, I thought I would just want to say that in case you think that somehow this is me. I don't have these understandings as he does. So what I wanted to say, I think last time we talked about faith, you know, there's a wonderful couple of verses from a sutra called the Dalala Dharani. Dharani is a sort of Dharani means some kind of long formulation of usually like a mantra that is spoken in order to avoid certain or to thwart bad circumstances. Dalala, I think, means lamp. It's called the anyway, it doesn't matter what it's called. Anyway, it has a couple of verses on faith, which are very famous. I'll just read it. Faith comes I'm translating as I go. Faith comes before, like a mother, it creates. It guards all qualities and increases them. It clears all doubt and rescues from the river. Faith shows the city of joy. Faith is like a mother. A mother creates children. The children are born in her womb. She gives birth to them, and then she guards them. She brings them up. It's like this. Faith is like a mother. It's like a mother. It creates. Or with faith, it creates the qualities, especially that type of faith I was talking about, which was the longing faith, the faith that wants to become like the objects of faith. With that faith, that is a motivational force. It creates the path. It pushes you along the path. It's like a mother. It creates. Faith guards all qualities. It means that whatever insights and compassion and renunciation that you have, these things are not irreversible until you reach somewhere on the higher path. So they can weaken. I mean, whatever qualities we have, they can weaken. Believe me, they can weaken, especially when things are bad and life gets tough, and sometimes your insights take a back seat and the worldly concerns sort of take over, And so me, long COVID sufferer, I am one of millions. No, not millions. Yeah, millions. But long COVID, there are thousands. But I find myself thinking in this little symptom, that little symptom, or what about this? I only think, I think of myself. And no matter what I may meditate on bodhicitta and exchanging myself, sometimes it kind of goes out the window. So faith, the kind of faith, which is the first kind of faith, that faith of belief, of trust, of knowing the path, of knowing the possibility of attaining enlightenment and attaining nirvana, that keeps you on. So it guards the qualities and increases the qualities. It clears away doubt. This is the second type of faith, the one which is a faith of clarity and a faith of joy. We talked about this last time. It frees you from the river. The river here is the river of suffering. The sufferings of humans, the sufferings of all sentient beings. The river is compared to a river because a river is constant and moving and carries and has no real sort of desire to stop. It just keeps going, and so it's like a river. It shows this, and faith shows you the city of joy. Again, the faith, this kind of longing faith, and this faith, this joyful faith, it actually shows you, the possibilities of freedom. It also says that with faith there is no trouble. This word for trouble is like the same word that's used for muddy water, dirty sort of water, muddiness. With faith, that's all gone, like the clarity of faith. And the mind is clear. Pride disappears. With faith, there is no pride because, as I said last time, there's always something bigger. When you have faith in something that's bigger than yourself. You want to attain something that is bigger than yourself. And so this kind of me sort of arrogance is not there. Tibetans on the whole are people of complex character, but they do have a kind of humility, generally speaking. Not all of them, but there's a general humility about Tibetan people. which I think comes from this faith. You know, they don't like pride. Tibetans say that Westerners are very, very clever, but they're too proud. I've heard this. Faith is the best wealth, the best jewel, the best treasure, and the best legs. Now, who's got the best faith? Is the best legs. What does that mean? Because with legs you travel, and if you want to travel, move to somewhere spiritually along the path, the best legs is the faith, as it says before. And faith is like the hand, insofar as it gathers in all kinds of virtuous states of mind and activity. It's like that. So I just thought I'd read it. It's a very I haven't seen it translated anywhere, but it's it's a well-known couple of verses from the Kangyur, the Sutras of the Buddha. Okay. What I wanted to say was that if we talk about faith, we talk about, in Buddhism, we talk about, I want to talk about Buddhism is based upon reality. The Dalai Lama says this. It's not pie in the sky. Do you have this expression, pie in the sky, in America? You know this? Okay. All right. It's not something very pretty up there, which actually is just nothing but some kind of fantasy. It's not that. It's based upon reality. Based upon reality means that the path that you follow, you travel along in your spiritual journey is built upon a foundation that has some factual existence, not something that is just, you don't just start from nothing. You have this kind of reality for an existence that is provable, identifiable, and then sometimes even immediately accessible. On that basic reality, the path is built, right? And if the path is built on a reality, then the result of the path will also be verifiable and valid and not pie in the sky. So Buddhism talks about base, path, and result, these three. You'll see them in all. Base, path, result, right? So this base, which is obviously the first starting place, what is it? What is this base that the path is founded on and that the result is founded on? What is this base? What is it? This is where Dalai Lama often says that science and Buddhism are compatible, because a base is simply a reality which has always been, was not invented by the Buddha, but is part of the fabric of our existence as we are, either externally or internally. So reality is something that existed before the Buddha came. The Buddha didn't invent it. He discovered it. He looked into it. And essentially, the reality in Buddhism consists of the two truths and the four truths, at least the first two of the four truths, right? The two truths, ultimate truth, conventional truth, and then suffering and the cause of suffering. They're called truths. They're all called truth. The ultimate truth, conventional truth, truth of suffering, truth of the cause of suffering. They're called truths. Now, they're called truths because some people translate this word as reality, and maybe that's also an alternative translation. They're called truths because they have an existence which is not destroyed by any validly perceiving evidential cognition, whether that be scientific or whether it be through the processes of mental investigation. it has that kind of reality. We're not talking about, no, we're not talking about Majamaka, no reality, not talking about that right now. We're just talking about the definition of truth in Buddhism is the way something appears is the way it exists. That is what a truth is, okay? The appearance and existence are one. They're not separate, okay? Now, I'm not talking about ultimate truth. I'm talking about just general truth, right? If I say, this is a pen, it appears to me as a pen, and it functions in reality as a pen. So we can say this is a truth, this is reality. So this is what the truth means here. So when we say Buddhism is based in reality, we're saying Buddhism is based on that kind of truth, the truth. So the truths that Buddhism is based on, and the most important one is the most important two are the ultimate, the conventional truths and the ultimate truths, right? This is the one of them. This is the most important one. This is the one that Nagarjuna talks about a lot in his works. The other two is the suffering, the suffering, the cause of suffering, and another one is impermanence, which is also a reality, and also the other one is the nature of the different types of mind. What that different types of mind, a sort of sense consciousness, mental consciousness, valid cognition, invalid cognition, mistaken cognition, wrong cognition, doubt, primary minds, mental factors. All of those are realities because they are fundamental truths that can be verified. So without doing that first, what is the point in practicing some kind of path, tantric path, sutra path, any religion? What is the point? Because if any kind of spiritual practice is not based upon reality, has no connection with reality. If it has no connection with reality, it has no connection with ourselves, and it can just becomes a rather fantastical sort of daydream. So this is when they base path and result. The base is these truths, and as I said, this is why science and Buddhism have so much in common. So briefly, a conventional truth is essentially the world of appearance. It is the world as it appears to us. Within that world of appearance, some appearances are valid and some are not, are they? So when we say the sun rises and then the sun sets, it appears that the sun travels across the sky, but it doesn't, does it? I mean, in scientific understanding, it is an appearance, that it's not actually valid because the sun doesn't. But nevertheless, it's okay. It doesn't really interfere with unless of course you were an astronaut, it might be a little bit tricky there. But because it's accepted, we talk about sunrise and sunset. These things are accepted. And if you look up anywhere on the internet, or when is sunrise, when is sunset, it's accepted by the world as being okay. So therefore, that's accepted. That's just something we can work with. Other kind of appearances, as I said, like the pen or anything that appears to us, it is a reality insofar as that it fulfills the function of what appears, and that is accepted by the world at large as a convention. Beyond that, it's very hard to point to something as being true, real. It's very difficult to do that then you start getting into the world of dogma. It's true for me, therefore, I don't care if it's not true for you, it's true for me. Then you get into the world of dogma. That isn't really a kind of reality that we can work with. So it all, Dharma Kirti says, all reasoning starts with reality. So starts with something we can see and we can experience. That which we experience through the senses and form the basis of, if we want to know, for example, the nature of what I am, if I want to understand, the nature of anything, it's pointless saying, oh, well, I can't examine I because I doesn't exist, or I can't understand how a car works because there is no car separate from its parts. And you employ some kind of ultimate Madhyamaka reasoning. That's not, that disassociates you immediately with any kind of reality. Any kind of journey of discovery is impossible if you don't have something to work with. That's why it's a base. It's a base. It's a reality. You can work with it. It doesn't matter that it's not an ultimate reality. Yes, I can't find it. It doesn't matter. I can't find myself, but I can still sit here. I can talk. I can get sick. I can get old. I can get tired. It doesn't matter that these things, reality. This is a base. So that basic reality of the conventional truth deals with basically Abhidharma stuff, Abhidharma philosophy on, Abhidharma divides the skandhas. There's this skandha and that skandha, and there's this type of mind and that type of mind, and there's these types of beings. There are the 6 realms, and then there's the different types of birth and so forth. Abhidharma is essentially base reality. Incidentally, the one of the chapters in Abhidharma, I can't remember, is on cosmology, and so it presents the cosmology of Mount Mural. Did I talk about this last time? Someone shake their head. No. Okay. As you know, there is Mount Mural. Okay, there's Mount Mural, and there's the sun. It's actually tiger balm, but it can do as the sun. And the sun and the moon go round Mount Mural, right, like this. Right? When it's behind Mount Mural, it's nighttime. When it's in front of Mount Mural, it's daytime. So there's a cosmology based on that. And then on Mount Mural, of course, is the various heavens, Tushita, heaven of the 33, and so forth on Mount Mural. So this is basic cosmology. And there are 4 continents, north, south, and the southern continent is Jambudvipa, which is where we live. So this is the basic cosmology. Now, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has rejected this and saying, well, it doesn't have any basis in reality. And he doesn't say that just because it disagrees with science. He's not trying to sort of, what's the word? He's not trying to sort of, cuddle up to scientific views in order to be sort of modern. Sometimes we do that, don't we? We like to, if someone with a white coat agrees with what we're saying, oh, that's good. It's sort of, we try and sort of validate the sort of Buddhism by saying, oh, there's something in science that agrees with it. I mean, it may be true, but it's not a reason for. We should validate the sort of the tenets of Buddhism by knowing through our own meditations and contemplations whether they are true or not just because science says so. Although, of course, it's even the Dalai Lama, he will use quantum physics, for example, showing that it kind of there is agreement. But anyway, he says, the reasoning is this. He says, that, for example, that, Mount Meru is form, it's matter, it's material. When the sun goes behind it, it's nighttime. Therefore, the Mount Meru it must be coarse matter, form. I mean, if you can block out the sun, I mean, my goodness, you can, that's pretty powerful stuff. I mean, the sun is a very powerful thing. If you block out the sun, then this Mount Meru must be made. It's not some subtle form that we can't see. There used to be a sort of I believe, sort of ideas floating around that Mount Meru exists, but you couldn't see it. But that isn't really possible because it has to be coarse form, because it blocks out the sun and causes night. Well, if it's coarse form, it's accessible to the eyes. We should see it. We don't see it. It's not there. You know, spaceships went up there. Oh, congratulations on getting to Mars, by the way, you Americans. Wonderful. I thought that was fantastic. It landed on Mars, you know. It's fantastic. I love that kind of stuff. They all jumped up and they were so happy when it was so happy when it, you know, it was like sort of 3 meters, boom, down, then boom. Yes. That's great. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah. So he has rejected the existence of Mount Mural, and he says, you know, I have the greatest respect for Vasubandhu, who wrote the Abhidhamma, greatest respect. But when it comes to cosmology, I'm sorry, I can't accept it. So this is what he means when he said Buddhism must be based upon a reality. Mount Meru is not a reality. So where did Nagarjuna go to get the Prajnaparamita Sutras? You know, he said he went to the northern continent. He went to the northern continent to bring back the perfection of wisdom sutras. So what is that? And when we go, you know, so we go like this, Sashipuga. This thing here is the Mount Meru, right? So maybe now we should go like this, you know, a globe. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a bit. Yeah. So these base realities. So ultimately, there is a truth that is beyond appearance, one which, of course, is the result of some final cognitive investigation through the mind. You all know this, I'm sure. You've all meditated on, you know, where is the self, where's the I, and this is what the Buddha discovered on the, you know, after 6 years on the side of the river where he starved himself and was not getting anywhere. And finally, he came to this understanding, you know, and that the ultimate search for any phenomena is that the phenomena becomes unfindable. It cannot be found. So that is a reality. It's reality. Whether you perceive emptiness or not, it doesn't matter. There's a big difference between understanding the right view and perceiving emptiness. There's a difference between understanding emptiness and perceiving it. There's a difference. You can understand emptiness by meditating on dependent arising, you know, through Nagarjuna's wonderful teachings. You know, if things are dependent, they can't have any true existence from their side. This can be understood almost philosophically and conceptually, but that doesn't matter. It's still, if it is true, it's true. Whether you see it in front of your eyes like you see anything, doesn't matter. We have to learn to believe in inferential cognition and learn to understand that there is more than one way of knowing. And the way of knowing here, what we're talking about, is knowing things that are hidden from the senses, but can be perceived through through our cognitive intellect. You know, the Dalai Lama always praises human intellect. He says, such a waste if you don't use it. And we have an intellect. If it just sits there and you just sit, you know, watching endless reruns of Game of Thrones, you're not really, you know, nothing wrong with Game of Thrones, by the way, wonderful. But, you know, intellect, the human intellect is something we should make use of. We have it. We were born with it. It doesn't really need to be developed in a way. Everybody has intellect. We all have the ability to think and work things out, so we should use that. And that's the way we can understand the two truths. There's a relative or conventional truth. This word conventional truth is a little bit difficult because in Tibetan the word actually means hidden or concealed. It conceals. It's hidden, and you know, what is hidden is the actual reality of an object is hidden. Why? It's hidden by the way it appears. Why does it appear that way? That's because of our own something from inside. You know, when you understand the emptiness of something, that's something that doesn't change. It doesn't suddenly go, whoosh, look, here I am. You know, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't do that. It changes here. You know, it's said in Buddhism, all things are pure from the beginning. What does that mean, pure from the beginning? It means that they have always been empty. They've always had these two truths, these two natures. There's two natures. One thing has two natures. Always been like that. So that's a reality, you know, that reality. And on that basis of reality is the path is built. That same reality nature can be applied to the mind. What is the nature of the mind? What is how we understand the mind? We talked about, did we talk about Buddha nature? No. Did you talk about Buddha nature last time? Yes, a little bit. Well, the nature of the mind, I haven't got time to go into, but anyway, we all have a mind. We all have a mind. We all have a consciousness. We all have a kind of knowing. We know, you know. Mind is like a mirror. Whatever you put in front of the mirror, it reflects. If it's not there, it doesn't reflect. Mind is like that. Whatever comes to the mind, whatever is in front of the eyes and the ears, mind takes on that aspect. In Buddhist thinking, consciousness takes on the aspect of the object. It takes it on. Like in the same way, the mirror, the reflection in the mirror is not the object. The object is outside the mirror, but the reflection of the mirror is kind of in the mirror, isn't it? It's sort of there. So the mirror and the reflection of the image is all one, aren't they? So like that, consciousness takes on these. So mind, like consciousness, no. Mind, like a mirror, consciousness, like a mirror, is by itself somewhat pure in the sense that it doesn't have these objects permanently within them. If they are there, they're there. If they're not there, they're not there. So mind itself has this kind of a clarity, a kind of like a sky-like, mirror-like, window-like, a clarity or transparency, a clarity. And what distinguishes the mind or the consciousness from a mirror is a mirror doesn't know, but mind has an awareness. It doesn't mean, I'm talking about knowing in the sense of knowing correctly, but it has a kind of, it perceives. It perceives. The fact you can remember what you did yesterday is because the mind perceived those things we did yesterday, and it can remember. So mind has this two nature, these two qualities, clear and knowing, and that's a reality too, and that is based upon that reality. and that reality is Buddha nature, really. It's Buddha nature, the ability of the mind to sort of develop into whatever you or we as humans want it to develop in. You know, that whatever we place in it, whatever we train ourselves in, it has the ability to develop that knowing the reality of mind, of that, knowing also these kind of ultimate conventional reality of mind a little bit anyway, can very much provides us with the basic tools for the path, which is built on the reality. It provides, quite honestly, if you know the realities of the two truths and the truth of suffering and so forth, and the cause of suffering, I don't think you need to do a lot of study. I don't think you need to. I think it's the path kind of speaks for itself. It generates itself, really. If you know what's wrong with you, you know what to do. So yeah, the mind. So the four truths, the truth of suffering. I mean, I'm not going to go into that because you all know that. But the suffering nature of ourselves is of the three kinds of suffering of change, all pervasive, formational suffering. It's the last one that's important. And the last one, the suffering is sometimes there and sometimes it isn't, right? Like when you're happy, and you're sad, and so forth. And suffering of change also is not always there. It's, sometimes when you're lying in the sun, it's fantastic, and then it changes. It's not always there. But the third one is this sort of our very nature, our very being is such that it can give rise at any moment to any of the first two sufferings. As well I know, if you have a body, you're going to get, you get sick. That kind of suffering, and that is a reality. In the scriptures it talks about, what's it says, the ripened skandhas. It talks about the 5 ripened skandhas. Ripened means produced by karma. That existence itself is suffering. The wheel of life that held in the teeth of the Lord of Death, that monster Lord of Death. That's us. When you look at that, it's not just a sort of picture on a wall in a temple. It's us. That's us. It's us. And outside the wheel is the Buddha pointing to the moon, pointing to nirvana. That's where we should be. But so again, it's the reality. It's a reality. And and the cause of suffering again is something that I think we can understand. I mean, even on a day-to-day basis, it's not too difficult to understand how desire and anger, and especially me can bring about suffering. It's a little more difficult to understand it in terms of the wheel of life, the 12 links. That's a little bit difficult to understand and does require quite a lot of thinking, because karma is very hidden. We can't really understand that. But we're talking about things that can be understood, that can be proven. So with these realities, the path almost speaks for itself. If that's the cause of suffering, right? If that's the cause of suffering, then I need to do something that gets rid of that cause. I can get rid of the cause because these things like anger and self-centeredness, they're not part of the mind innately. They're there, but like the mirror, they can be removed from the mirror. So there is a way. There is a way out. There is a way out. And the way out is the sort of final purification or removal of all these causes of suffering in the mind, the root of which, of course, is ignorance. We haven't touched on that yet, but this ignorance, this inability to know the two levels of truth, that ignorance itself is at the root of all other causes of suffering. It is possible to remove them. That removal, thinking about how it's possible that there can be removal, they can be removed, they can be eliminated, you know, through various antidotes that the Buddha taught, the path, they can be removed. And that removal itself is freedom. It's liberation. It's the third noble truth, the truth of cessation. That's what cessation is. It is the cessation of all the causes that cause suffering. And the Dalai Lama says again and again, if you know that cessation is a truth or a reality that can be attained, then you're inspired, you're convinced to travel towards it. How do you travel towards it? By the fourth truth, the path, you know, all the different paths, all the different practices through the 5 paths and then the 10 levels that lead you to it. So, you know, those that reality is basically what gives Buddhism its momentum. It gives it its momentum. It's gives you the motivation, and not only the motivation, but gives you the understanding of these things as possible. It's not sort of pie in the sky stuff. This could actually happen, you know. So when you get to the Mahayana explanation of things, especially when it comes to the result. Now, the Mahayana talks about 4 bodies of the Buddha, right? Or 3 bodies. You know, the resultant state is an enlightened mind, dharmakaya, from which manifestations occur spontaneously in either the form of a sambhogakaya or a nimanakaya whenever they are necessary. So the Buddha that came to India was already a Buddha and was manifested, you know, from this dharmakaya long ago, and the Buddha was enlightened long ago, and the Buddha says that the Buddha can speak every language of every being at one time, and they'll all be understood. It's like Google Translator or something. It's a fine, ultimate Google Translator. So these things are incredible, aren't they? I mean, these things are almost unbelievable. And I wouldn't blame anyone if they said, oh, come on, really? The Buddha was a human being, you know, everyone knows that. He was already enlightened. Come on. You know, there is no problem in thinking that, because that is naturally how we think. No, it's not possible. You know, if we are blinded by faith, blind faith, then that somehow will stop us wondering, stop us doubting. Doubt is important. Wondering is important. Wondering means why, how. So we have the result, the 4 bodies of the Buddha, and we have the path, and we have the reality. In order to understand those fantastical qualities of the Buddha, we have to understand the causes of them, right? And if you want to understand the result, you understand the cause. If you understand the cause, you can understand the result. Therefore, if we can understand the path and the realities, which form the basis of that path, we can understand that these things are genuinely true. So Buddhism, in terms of its way it's presented, and over time, first there was the Buddha, then his teachings, then came the great masters like Nagarjuna, then came the great lamas who taught to us. And then when we get to us, and then we say, oh, these are the words of the Buddha, I must prostrate and take them. This is not the right way of doing it. Dalai Lama often quotes that famous verse about you should examine my teachings as you examine gold, right? You don't. You start the other way. You start from the teachings, from the base reality. You look at the base reality, then you look at the path that's built, then you can see how that path can indeed result in these fantastical qualities. That is true faith. That's a true conviction. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. I made some notes and I can't really remember. Okay. So, yes. Yeah. Okay, I've covered all that. So in the Mahayana, in the Theravada tradition, nirvana is attained by a meditation based upon the three trainings: ethics, wisdom, concentration. Right? Ethics is to have a good, wholesome, clean mind. It's not all about just taking vows. It's about having sort of ethical basis, because without that the mind is not clean, it's not pure, and you can't practice. Then concentration is you need to focus the mind, develop some kind of samadhi, and then with the samadhi you focus on the inherent or lack of inherent existence of the self and of all phenomena, and through which gradual kind of elimination is developed. You could go through the path of seeing. Then as you meditate more and more to understand, if you understand something doesn't exist, right, then from that moment onwards, it loses its attraction, even if it appears to exist. When I first got COVID, I was quite frightened, because I had no idea what was going to happen to me. I thought in the middle of the night, I thought, oh God, I had never so much have I valued a mobile phone. I had my phone sort of by my bed. Jackie was in India. I had my phone by my bed, ready to reach out, and it was fearful. I was a bit frightened. I was quite frightened by it all. But now I'm not so scared, because I kind of know it. I realize now that this is long COVID and da 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 da. So I become kind of used to it. It doesn't have its power to scare me. And so knowledge is power. If you know something doesn't exist in the way it appears, it has no longer the hold on you. It has no longer the effect on you. And so even though it still appears that way, and it will appear that way until you reach sort of the seventh or eighth bhumi, I think, the seventh bhumi, I can't remember, and it will appear that way, but it appears as an illusion, as an illusion, as a dream, these famous similes. And so therefore you don't have that adherence to it anymore. And so the more you meditate by freeing this kind of belief, this ignorance. This ignorance in Tibetan Buddhism means not just not knowing, it means misknowing, knowing in the wrong way. The more you, as you free yourself from that, then final freedom of that is nirvana. And that is a path of wisdom, right? That's a path of wisdom. But in the Mahayana, you need something else, because you are trying to help all sentient beings. It's just not enough to disappear into some peaceful, into the realm of nirvana. You have to somehow, by using the sort of wonderful process of cause and effect and karma, develop yourself, into a enlightened being with all the form that is necessary, the form the necessary to help others. You need to do that. You need to meditate and develop. So you have method and wisdom. These two together, right? So, and developing the sort of bodhicitta, the causes, and through practices of giving and patience and so forth, is a practice that goes hand in hand with wisdom, right? It goes hand in hand with wisdom. The two go together. They go together. So you say that in Buddhism, in your practice, any kind of meditation on bodhicitta, on the paramita, on the perfections, has to be accompanied by wisdom, accompanied by a background sort of knowledge that none of this is existing as it appears. That kind of background, it says method is seized by wisdom. It has to be held by that. It's like, if it means whatever you're doing, you know something about it, something hidden, which at first sight is not there. Now, likewise, any kind of meditation on emptiness must be motivated by bodhicitta. It's difficult to say that meditating on wisdom is held by bodhicitta, because when you meditate on wisdom, you don't have bodhicitta in your mind. It's not possible, because the nature of phenomena is your soul focus. When the great bodhisattvas on the first bhumi, the first level, when they are in the sort of meditative equipoise, a meditation in which the ultimate nature of reality appears to them, at that moment there is no conventional appearance, there is no appearance of self, and so there is no bodhicitta really. So there's but when they come out of it and they go back into their bodhicitta practices, all appearance is there, rises up, but it's held by this kind of knowledge, which you gain from your wisdom meditations. So these two, they're like birds, the wings of a bird, two wings of a bird. They are together. So these two, they are held by each other, right? They're held by each other. And with these two, you progress along the path, right? You progress along the path until you attain the final goal, whereas the entrance into nirvana is postponed. You don't go there, but the wisdom itself is used to help propel the bodhicitta motivation into creating yourself into a enlightened being. So that still leads to the question, well, how does a Buddha have four bodies, and how is it possible that they are the Dharmakaya can sort of is manifest like this, and how is it possible that You know, the Dalai Lama says, when you go for refuge, when you say, I go refuge to the Buddha, you can think of the Buddha as the monk who came to India. You could do that if you want. I mean, it's very inspiring sometimes to think of the Buddha, what he did. You know, he left his home, he left all his rich, lovely palace, and he went out into the wilds of India, and until he found the truth. I mean, there's just something admirable. I mean, and you can think about it. He didn't he found it himself. You can think about that, but he said, actually, we should try and think of the Buddha as a emanation of the Dharmakaya, and that's difficult, really difficult, isn't it? You know, so, but we need to look at the path and see how it will become an enlightened being. Now, one of the problems with the sutra path is that these method and wisdom, they're separate. You know, they are, one can be held by the other, that's true, but they're different types of mind. When you, as I said, when you meditate on emptiness, there's no bodhicitta there, really. And when you meditate on bodhicitta, you don't see the ultimate truth, because if you saw the ultimate truth, you wouldn't see any bodhicitta, because there isn't any findable bodhicitta anywhere. So they are separate. And what is the other problem with it is that the consciousness which we use is a kind of very coarse consciousness, which is sort of blighted by all kinds of sort of distractions and so forth, and in itself is not really ideal. So if there was a subtler level of consciousnness that we could use, a subtler, more subtler level, one which is not prey to the vicissitudes of sensual input, and is subtle in the sense that it is quite free from conceptualization and so forth. If we could use that, you know, if we could use that, that would help. And also, that type of mind is a mind, a consciousness, which is accompanied by a very subtle kind of energy. Lung. Now let's leave that for the moment. In Tantra, when you visualize yourself as a deity, what's happening there? What is happening? First of all, Gyaltsabje, he says, Gyaltsabje, Tsongkhapa's disciple, he said, if you think that this deluded Gavin, I mean, he wasn't talking about me, he didn't know me, but anyway, if this deluded self is the one which you visualize as a Buddha, that is wrong. You know, to visualize is the deluded Gavin is now a Manjushri or Yamantaka. That's ridiculous. You know, the Yamantaka or the deity you visualize is your future self. It's not the deluded self. But when you do it, first of all, you meditate upon emptiness. From the sphere of emptiness I arise. You meditate on emptiness. You meditate on the non-ultimate nature of me, of myself, and this body. I cannot be found anywhere. I cannot be sort of identified with this, that, or the other. There is a kind of negation of this sort of self-existing, either separate or one. You know, there is a kind of negation, this direct negation. And that mind of direct negation, that mind that understands the sort of non-inherent nature, that mind itself becomes the deity. You know, it becomes the deity, or the yidam. And that is called divine pride. You know, at that moment, the understanding of non-ultimate nature and the deity are one mind, right? One mind. Now, fair enough. there's one mind. That's good. That's good. So that is definitely some kind of sign that enables you to know that if you develop that, if that was to become a reality, genuinely reality, that you did become that deity, because at the moment you're not. The generation stage is called a conceptual stage. It's not real. But if it was real, that would mean, wouldn't it, that your mind and the body of the deity are one, right? It'd be one, because the path is one. You meditate where the understanding of emptiness and the deity are one mind. Therefore, when you are an enlightened, if you're an enlightened being through the path of Tantra, your mind and your form is one, right? So therefore, this helps to understand how Dharmakaya, which is the mind of the Buddha, and Sabogakaya and Namanakaya, which are the forms of the Buddha, they are one. They're not separate, you know. They're not separate. And the fact that the Buddha in India, Namanakaya, is actually a manifestation of the Dharmakaya, comes from again, we haven't got time to go into this, but comes from the fact that it is not possible to attain enlightenment without entering Tantra. According to Jetson Kappa, you have to enter Tantra. And there are many, many reasons for that. But the main one is that this oneness, of the form and the cognition of emptiness. However, in the generation stage, as I said, that is just contrived. When you meditate and visualize yourself as a deity, that's just imagination, It's just visualization. There's no real body there. So what we need then, and because it's mind and it's not real, it will not serve. It cannot become a cause for the body of a Buddha. It can't be. So what we need then is something which will develop into the body of a Buddha. And the body of the Buddha may not be made of atoms, but it is form. It's form. So enter the completion stage. In the completion stage, what happens is that we awaken our old friend, the subtle mind, by bringing the winds and airs into the central channel. All the coarse conceptual minds dissolve. There are 80 of them, they all dissolve. And what is left is this subtle mind of clear light, which happens naturally at death, but if you've got the time and the opportunity, can happen in practice. When you do that, then you've got this subtle mind, together with the subtle wind, together, maybe here or wherever it is, right? That is the awakening of the subtle mind by using, the yogas of the completion stage, the sort of yogas of the chakras and the nadis, and, I'm not going to go into that, but by that. Then with that, if you then go into the mind, the understanding of emptiness and the deity's body, as you did in the completion stage, this time, that body, the body is actually becomes that subtle energy, that subtle wind is the form. And the mind, which is one with it, becomes the mind that understands emptiness. So they are still one, as one, like they were in the generations. They are one, mind and body. Deity, understanding of emptiness. Method, wisdom. Subtle mind, subtle wind. They are as one. They are one, right? They're one. With continued meditation upon that, this subtle wind becomes the illusory body. This is, the illusory body is a body that's of the deity that is somehow separate from this rough body and can travel somewhere. Be good to have that now, wouldn't it? In lockdown, you could just go to India and back. And also it becomes the cause for the form body, the Sambhogakaya, becomes the cause of that. The subtle mind becomes the cause of the mind of the enlightened mind, the Dharmakaya, right? As they are one, actually one, when you become a Buddha, they are actually one. So therefore, whatever the Dharmakaya, the enlightened mind thinks, it becomes. Therefore, the idea that the Buddha can manifest without effort, spontaneously, is based upon that fact. So, it's a bit rushed that, but the basic point is that if you want to understand the four bodies of the Buddha, these fantastic qualities of the Buddha, you need to understand the path, which I just mentioned. If you want to understand the path, you need to understand the base reality of the two truths, which is based on the two truths, the four truths and the two truths, and on Buddha nature as well. So it's that way round, even in that way round, you start with the basic reality. If you want to understand the Buddha, start with the two truths. Don't start with looking at Buddhas. Don't start by gazing at the Buddha. You might not understand much that way, but start with the two truths. Then through that process, gradually you can come to understand the, even Dharmakirti in his Paramahanavattaka, in the second chapter, he devotes the second chapter to proving that the Buddha was what he calls pramana, a valid being. This word valid is a little difficult to translate, but it means reliable, authoritative, non-deceiving, won't let you down. Dharmakirti talks of valid cognition, valid speech, and a valid being. He talks about these three. And he says, and the way you, again, he goes through this, the way you prove that the Buddha is a valid being is to start with the teachings. Look at the teachings. Look at them, and you can work backwards. You can see. This also leads to the question of whether the Mahayana Sutras and the Tantras are the word of Buddha. A lot of people say that they are not, that there were later additions, and that even in the times of Nagarjuna, there were those who doubted that the Mahayana Sutras and the Tantras were the words of the Buddha. And he actually, wrote, in Precious Garland, I think he refuted that. And also at time of Asanga, I think he wrote in Sutra Alankara refutation. And Shantideva, I think also, didn't he, in Bodhicharyavatara. So it's nothing new. But how do you disprove, or how do you prove, Well, I think, there are many ways. His Holiness talks about, well, Nagarjuna was no fool. He was an intelligent, wise being. And he was only 400 years after the Buddha. And he was Indian. Whereas we, 2,500 years later, not as wise, Western, who's likely to be more correct? That's a good point. But actually, we say in England, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You say that? Yeah? You don't say the proof of the pudding is in it? So you don't have all these wonderful sayings in America. I mean, the proof of the pudding is in eating, right? If you want to know how good a pudding is, you eat it. There's no good talking about it. So if you take a Tantra, right? If you take Tantra and you study the Tantra and you study the philosophy of Tantra, which is very roughly what I was pathetically trying to do just now. If you study the philosophy of Tantra, right? And how it works and how it can work, how it acts by doing this, it does lead to the state of Vajradhara, of the Buddha in his tantric form. To understand that, then you can see it does what it says on the tin. You know, you have that expression, right? Do you? It does what it says on the tin. It delivers. It delivers. It delivers. Then you can understand if this actually does lead to the state of a Buddha, whether it's a Tantra or Mahayana Sutra, then the person who delivered that can only have been an enlightened being from that. You know, otherwise, how could they have done it? So that's also, you know, something that worth thinking about, because you know, many Buddhist scholars I know, academics, often say that the Mahayana Sutras were appeared or written much later, you know, so they say that, and the evidence is archaeological and so forth. But I mean, you know, I think it's worth thinking about. It's not something we should ignore. So definitely something to worth thinking about. And I think it should be done from that point of view, by examining. If you want to know the result, look at the cause. You know, that's so important. Oh, guru devotion. Oh God, I don't know. Guru devotion, yeah. I don't know. The Dalai Lama says in the Pratimoksha, in the Vinaya, in the sutras of monastic regulations, so forth, in that realm, you know, when you are as a monk or a nun, you know, at that time, you know, your teacher, i.e. the one who gives you the vows, or the one who teaches you, you should have the perception of them as a Buddha. He uses the word dushe. Dushe means recognition, identifying, perceiving as a Buddha. Not that they are, but as a Buddha, no? You know, Atisha, he said, didn't he? He said, we should see all living beings as Buddhas. What does that mean? What does that actually mean when to say we should see all living beings as Buddha? Does that mean that every time you see somebody, you think, oh, Buddha, Buddha, Buddha? Or that would be a little difficult, wouldn't it? I don't think it means that. I think what it means is that at certain times when someone is talking to you, especially of some problem, something a bit sticky, a bit awkward, at that moment, you know, you should not see them. I mean, they don't suddenly appear. Buddha, not like that. You don't. It's not a visual perception. You just remember, or you try and see this person is a Buddha. They're teaching me. At that time, it's very practical because it will help lessen the controversy or help the situation very much. So you see them, and if you're taking vows, you know, it helps very much that you see the person you're taking the vow from as a Buddha. So I like getting married, right? I don't know how many of you got married in church. I didn't, but if you're married in church, if you truly believe you're in the eyes of God, you take these vows, till death us do part, right? For better or for worse, sickness and health. What's the other one? To love and to cherish. I won't say honor and obey, okay? But the whole magnificence of the church, the setting somehow makes the vows, should make the vows more powerful, right? Whereas if you go to a registry office, and we got married in Delhi, in the sales tax office, near Connaught Place. It cost 4 rupees. It was very unromantic, very unromantic. Yeah. Anyway, it seems to me that the perception at the time, so you see something as divine, has an effect. And he says that in the he didn't say that about marriage. That was just me. Okay. He said in the sutra path, the non-tantric path, you should see the guru as being like a Buddha, but not as a Buddha, but like a Buddha, like an enlightened being. Again, I think that makes a lot of sense. If you have respect and you see the teacher as something special, then I think you learn better. You know, it's much better if you don't like the teacher in a university. If you don't like the teacher, or if you think that they are, you know, not particularly nice people, or they don't know very much, then your learning will suffer. So I mean, it makes sense, but it's a practical instruction. And in Tantra, you see them actually as a Buddha. There's difference, actually as a Buddha. And I think the reason for that is that, as I mentioned before, did I mention before? Maybe not. That in Tantra, is called taking the result into the past. You take the final result and you have it now. Therefore, you know, you meditate on yourself as a deity, and you meditate on the environment as the mandala. So you're taking the result as a path. Well, in that, the one who gives you the initiation, then surely, you know, you can't see them as an ordinary being. They have to be they have to be the deity. And also, because you're trying to become that deity, or we're trying to become the deity, right? It seems that if you see the one who's giving you the teachings as that deity, you know, eventually, you know, you become closer and closer until you become that deity. I suppose, I don't know. I'm not a tantric practitioner, so, but I think that in Tantra, you should see them actually as a Buddha. But are they a Buddha? Are they? That's the question. So the Dalai Lama says, you know, in the Lamrim teachings, at the beginning of the Lamrim teachings, the very first teaching is Guru devotion, and in that says clearly you should see the Guru as a Buddha, right? You know, and it gives reasons why you can see the Guru as a Buddha, and so forth. You know, so, but it only says that you know, I think this is because in Tibet at that time, most Tibetans were so very much a great liking for Tantra, and the Lama is a preparation for Tantra. And also in all the quotes that Tsongkhapa cites, they're from Tantras. The Tantra says this, the Tantra says this. The only non-tantric text, I think, is the 50 verses of Guru devotion, but he points out this was written by Ashvagosha, who was a non-Buddhist before he became a Buddhist. And at that time, you know, the Guru as a sort of a enlightened being was a cultural thing. And so he thinks maybe, you know, he was just repeating that. But also, you know, the 50 verses of Guru devotion is very much a text in preparation for Tantra. However, he says that if the, you know, the 3 persons, your small scope, middle scope, if the small scope, if the Lamrim was for a small scope alone and nothing else, it's very unlikely that people of small scope would mainly develop trying to have a better rebirth in the future life. Very unlikely that they need to see the Guru as a Buddha. Very unlikely. And this is the Dalai Lama's own words. So Again, I think it comes down to seeing the need for perceiving the Guru as the Buddha. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm on shaky ground here because in Tantra, do you actually see the Guru? Do you actually truly believe that the Guru is a Buddha, or do you just think I will see him as a Buddha or her as a Buddha because it's helpful? It's difficult because I mean, you see the whole environment as a mandala, but is it? I mean, if you go into the shop and buy a newspaper, is that the mandala? You know, is the? I mean, is it? How does it work? No. So anyway, I'll leave that to you because I don't know. But I think the problem that has arisen here with us Westerners maybe is that we've been told that everything the Guru does is for enlightened reasons, and Guru can do no wrong, and if the Guru wants to sleep with you, that's all right, you know, because doing it, you know, that kind of thing is really, you know, it's almost like the disciple has been forced to believe that the Guru is a Buddha. It's not coming from any kind of knowledge, any kind of understanding of the tantric path. And you know, Samdong Rinpoche, who used to be the Khalon Tripa, the Prime Minister of Tibet in exile, and the Dalai Lama was the supreme head. You know, so they worked together, you know, in the political field. He said, Samdong Rinpoche, he said, I often disagree with His Holiness on political matters. I don't agree. I don't think it's right. But when he is teaching, I see him as a Buddha. I see him as Chenrezig. So, you know, can have both going on. A political sort of someone you can discuss politics with and not agree with at the same time. And then next time you see him as a Buddha. I think, no. I think we need, as Westerners, we need to think carefully, and maybe it's incumbent upon, you know, the Tibetan masters who come over here to explain this this whole idea of Guru devotion properly. But it's incumbent upon us as practitioners to know what we're doing, you know. So I think I might finish because I can't think of anything else to say.
Gavin, it's noon, so if you're ready, if you're at a point, you may want to stop.
I'm going to stop. It's 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been really a wonderful teaching. Very precious. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, pleasure.